In chapter 39, we're going to be diving deeper into the inner workings of kavana, of intention, and really picking up on the nuances and intricacies of the powerful impact of intention. Sometimes we think of intention or anything spiritual as just like one big blob of spiritual energy. And when we learn Kabbalah, when we learn Chassidut, we're always just amazed to realize how intricate and how detailed the spiritual worlds are, as the spiritual worlds mirror this physical world. So just as, or rather, this physical world mirrors the higher worlds, spiritual realms. So just as this world, every detail matters. And if you send one dot out of an email, meaning if you forget the .com or just even the dot, the email is not going to send. So too in the spiritual world, everything is intricate and detailed, and the nuances matter. Previously, we said that there's a kavana compared to an animal. And this level is compared to the angels, as they are called highest animals. So we're talking about the innate love that a person has in their heart for God. And when they arouse it, they're not finding something outside of themselves. They're really just going very innate, which is this havas misuteris, versus the more human level of kavana would be the unique human gift of head over heart, of intellectually generating emotion. So now we're going to see the connection between animals and angels. As it says, an angel with the face of a lion is to the right of the divine chariot, and the face of an ox is to the left. So the word chayos is used for both angels, and it's used also for beasts or wild animals. So let's understand, what qualities do angels and animals share? Seemingly they're totally different. We wouldn't necessarily think of any connection between them. So let's understand their connection. So they both have no freedom of choice between good and evil. Okay, so animals do not have freedom of choice between good and evil, neither do angels. Angels are sent on their mission, and that's it. There isn't a question to them whether or not they're going to fulfill that mission. Secondly, their fear and love of God is natural to them. They don't need to create fear and love of God through intellectual contemplation of God's greatness. Their awareness of God's awesomeness is present. Their innate love and awe of God is something that God put into their instinct and within the makeup, the programming of the angels. So they have those two qualities in common. So therefore, we can say that tzaddikim are on a higher level than even the angels. The abode of the souls of the tzaddikim is in the world of Bria, whereas the abode of the angels is in the world of Yetzirah. So, meaning, in terms of the four spiritual worlds that we discuss, of the highest world being Silus, and then Bria, and then Yetzirah, and then Asiya, the souls of the tzaddikim are able to rest in a higher world than even the angels. The difference between Bria and Yetzirah is as follows. In Yetzirah, only the midos, right, the lower worlds, of the blessed Ein Sof of God's endless light radiate, which are the six sefirot, which are Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzik, Hod, Yesod. And sometimes we include Malchus in there too. And they're here it just says through Yesod. Okay, fine. So, and they nest, right? It's like literally, they do like them resting there. Their nest is in the world of Yetzirah. So the way I like to remember the four worlds and the inner workings of them is through using the tetragrammaton, God's four-letter name. So Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. So Yud is the world of Atzilus. It's transcendent. Hey is that intellectual connection with God. Vav is 6, okay? Gematria 6, because it's the 6th letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And so Vav is the idea of the 6 emotions. And Vav, if you look at the way it's drawn, it's the drawing down, right? It's that line coming down. It's the hamshacha of the midos. And so a Yetzirah is always going to be connected to emotion, as it is the resting place for the 6 emotional spheros, versus Bria is the more intellectual, is more connected with neshama, which is more intellectual, which is that higher Hey. So therefore, this is the service of the angels whose abode is in Yetzirah, constantly, never ceasing day or night to stand in fear and dread of God. This refers to the entire host of angels under Gavriel, which is on the left. So the angels have their different positions. The left represents the midah of Gevurah meaning restraint, severity, which evokes fear and awe. So we want to have love of God, but we also want to have fear and awe of God, and that's the left side. That's the side of Gavriel. Therefore, all these angels stand in constant fear of God. So the angels are very emotion-based, right? Their innate love and awe of God is within them, and it's very real and palpable to them. We talk about it in morning davening, morning prayers, like the intensity of the emotions that the angels have for God. And so the ones connected to the left are the ones connected to awe, are connected to Gavriel. Okay, and then you have on the angels on the right, the service of the host of angels under Michael on the other hand, is the love of God, and they stand in constant adoration of godliness, corresponding to the meaning of chesed. So on the left you have Gabriel, which is Gavura, which is restraint, and on the right you have Michael, which is the loving connection to God. This is all happening in the world of Yetzirah, which is the world connected with emotion. But in the world of Bria, which is corresponding to the higher Hey of God's name, the Yud, and then the Hey is the Chabad of Atzilus. It's the Chachma Bina Das. This is the source of the midos. So the midos, these emotions, actually come from the intellect. That's where they're born from. And so higher than them is the Chachma Bina Das. It's the intellect. It's the Chachma is the wisdom, the Bina, the understanding, the Das, and the knowledge and the integration. And so Bria is a higher world, and it's connected with the intellect. As is written in the Tikkun Zohar, that Ima Ilah, which whenever we see the word Ilah, we know that we're going to be talking about spheres in the world of Atzilus, in the highest world. So Ima Ilah, the supernal mother, the sphere of Bina, as Bina is the feminine quality, which is described as mother of the world of, you guessed it, Atzilus, the highest world. Ness and radius in the throne, meaning the world of Bria, with the three spheres of Atzilus, Chachma, Bina, and Das. So from this, what we are appreciating is that there is an aspect of how Atzilus rests itself in Bria. So all these worlds have a certain level of interconnection. And we're saying that this higher level of Bina has a connection with the Chachma Bina Das of the world below it, which is Bria. Because these three spherot of Chachma, Bina, and Das, right, these intellectual spherot of the Ein Sof radiate in the world of Bria, is therefore the abode of the souls of tzaddikim who serve God with the fear and love that stem from understanding and knowledge of God's greatness, because their main trait is their Chabad, is their Chachma, Bina, Das, is their intellect. So this love being called Ru'usa de Liba, the heart's desire created by intellect as opposed to desire that transcend intellect. So meaning their connection to God is a very intellect-based connection. Their love and awe is coming through their conscious choice to contemplate on God's greatness. And so therefore they're connected to Bria. They're connected to the world that's connected with intellect. From this Rusa Deliba, right, this desire, this pulling of the heart, a garment is formed for the soul in the world of Bria, which is the higher Gan Eden. And the lower Gan Eden of Yetzirah and the higher So basically, we have different Gan Edens here, okay? So when we say heaven or the Garden of Eden, there's the higher Garden of Eden, which is the world of Bria, which is the intellect-based one. And then there's the lower one, which is the world of Yetzirah, which is the emotional-based one. Okay. So, however, the statement that the Bodh Tzaddikim who serve God with intellectual love and fear is in the world of Bria applies only to those souls which are actually in the level of neshama. The level of neshama being that of intellect. As the verse states, the divine neshama will give them discernment, and which represent a superior intellect perception of the blessed Ein Sof. So we also have the different levels of the soul. So the world of the soul level of nefesh corresponds to the world of Asiya, ruach corresponding to Yetzirah, Bria corresponding to neshama, and Atzilus to chaya, and so forth. So basically, through understanding how the neshama levels connect to the different worlds, we appreciate an aspect of those levels. So as soon as I know that neshama corresponds to Bria, I know that Bria is connected to the Chachma Bina Das, is connected to the Hey of Hashem's name, and from there we can appreciate that that neshama is an intellectual aspect of our soul. So when we say neshama, we're talking more about the intellectual aspect. When we say ruach, we're talking more about the spirit, which is the emotions. And when we say nefesh, we're talking more about the lowest world, which is much more physical, and that's the blood, as the soul's within the blood. But the tzaddikim are on the level of ruach, right? So the emotional aspect of Yetzirah. And similarly, all the other souls of Israel who serve God with a natural fear and love hidden in the heart of all Israel, right? They're just going off the Havas Misuteres, the innate love, which is said compared to like the love of an animal or the love of an angel. Not love and fear born of intellect. They ascend to this Bria, to this higher world, only on Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh. Perfect time to be learning this. When all creation ascends to a higher level to delight in God and to bask in the radiance of the Shekhinah. So when the world has an Aliyah, they too are able to have an Aliyah. Such pleasure is the prerogative of the souls in Bria, since the soul's delight is from understanding and appreciation of godliness, to the extent that such a soul is capable of such understanding. Meaning, what is the pleasure that's available in this higher Gan Eden in the world of Bria? It's an intellect-based pleasure. It's the pleasure of when you understand something that you're learning and you have that aha moment and you grasp it within your being. It's a very intellectual-based pleasure, and that is the pleasure that's available in the world of Bria. The intellect of a created being delights and drives pleasure only that which it conceives, understands, and knows, corresponding to Chachma, Bina, and Das, and grasps it with its intellect and understanding. As much as it can grasp the blessed Ein Sof light through his wisdom and understanding, which radiate there in Bria, enabling the soul to perceive godliness. Meaning, how much pleasure can I have? The question is, how much can I intellectually grasp when it comes to the level of Neshama, when it comes to the level of the world of Bria? Because there, it's according to a person's vessel. The more I'm able to grasp, the more I'm able to understand, and therefore the more delight I'm able to have, and the more awe and love I'm able to generate of God, for God, because it's all intellectually generated. Thus, although these souls serve God as angels do, with love and fear that are natural, not intellectual, right? These are the souls in Yetzirah. Yet their service ranks higher than that of an angel. Okay, let's understand why, because seemingly they're on the same level of an angel. For these souls act at a free will. So like we said earlier, the animals and the angels, what they have in common is that their love and fear of God is so innate within them that they're not choosing it. That's just who they are. It's their nature. It's their DNA, if you will. And so with a human being, though, or soul that's connected to the world of Yetzirah, even though they're only tapping into the innate love within them, they're not creating something new. They're not going out and intellectually contemplating God's awesomeness with immense effort. All they're doing is awakening the innate love within. That's still a choice that's being made, and it's still conscious. And therefore, they're occasionally granted the ability to rise to the higher Gan Eden of Bria, which is intellectual based, because even though they're only arousing the innate love, it still has to be intellectually based for them to have that privilege. So at the end of the day, they are using their intellect, and therefore they do need to get to ascend to the higher level of Neshama, which is connected to Bria. Torah and divine service are actually absorbed in the 10 Spheros, which are a manifestation of godliness and which the Ein Sof light unites in perfect absolute unity. Specifically, this means that once Torah and divine service ascend to this 10 sphere of Bria when generated by actual fear and love. Meaning, what happens with our Torah and mitzvahs? Where does our prayers and our mitzvahs and our Torah study go? They ascend, they're absorbed into the higher worlds. We're actually creating something. It's a spiritual fuel. So what if I can't see it? It's still having a powerful impact. As we're learning through teachings of Kabbalah and Chassidus, that the spiritual worlds are real worlds. Things are actually happening. And so where's the energy being absorbed to? If they're coming from a place of my divine service is Bria, which is intellect-based, which means I'm really having intellectual kavana and generating a love and awe of God through my own contemplation and God's greatness, then my Torah mitzvahs are going to be able to be absorbed in the world of Bria. Okay, but let's say someone's Torah mitzvahs are coming from a place of a havas misuteres. They're arousing the innate love and awe that they have for God within their soul. So that's going to ascend to the emotional world of Yetzirah. It's very organized, this whole thing, okay? So now within the spirit of Bria and Yetzirah are clothed the 10 spheres of the world of Atzilus, right? The highest world. And they're completely unified with them. The spirit of Atzilus are clothed and completely unified with the spirit of Bria and Yetzirah. So it's not like these worlds are disconnected. There are train tracks between all of them. It's called Seder Hishtalshalut. It's a chain-like effect, meaning that through every chain, right, you're connected to the chain before it. And so even the energy of Tzilus is still palpable, even in the very last chain in the world of Asiya. It's felt the whole way through. That's the power of a chain. And the 10 sphere of Tzilus are in turn perfectly united with the emanator, with God. So this is a powerful thing, right? So Tzilus is really this translator or adapter between unlimited energy of God's infinity, of the Ein Sof, and a finite beginning of finite worlds, which are the lower worlds. And so Atzilus is connected below and it's connected above. The souls, on the other hand, are not absorbed into godliness of the 10 spheros, but stand instead in the chambers of the abodes of Bria and Yetzirah, right? So they're not going into the spheros like our Torah and mitzvahs are. They're chilling in those abodes. And the reason being is because if they were to become one with the spheros, they become one with godliness, and therefore they would lose their separate identity. They would no longer be called souls. So they cannot be absorbed into the holiness of the spheros, otherwise they would no longer exist. So there, what are the souls doing in these higher abodes, these higher chambers? They're delighting in the radiance of the Shekhinah, of God's presence, meaning the blessed Ein Sof light that as you unify with the 10 Sefirot of Bria or Yetzirah. And this radiance that they enjoy is actually a ray of the light of their own Torah and divine service. The reward of a mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. Meaning, what are they enjoying in these higher worlds? They're enjoying getting to watch their Torah mitzvahs merge with Ein Sof, merge with the Spheros, merge with godliness. And be absorbed into it. And so really the reward, what are they enjoying in the higher worlds? They're enjoying seeing the impact of their mitzvah, Torah mitzvahs in this world on the higher worlds. Thank you for taking the time to explore today's Tanya together.